What is going on, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason, and in today's video, we're going to be previewing and predicting Week 14 of the 2023 CFL season. Let's get into it. So obviously, this is the week after Labor Day, so we're getting a lot of the Labor Day rematches, as well as a couple of other games, different matches that we didn't see last week. So starting off Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we have the 4-7 Hamilton Tigercats visiting the 3-8 Ottawa Redblacks. And really, this is a do-or-die situation for the Redblacks. They've already lost the season series to the Ticats, so even if the Redblacks win this game, they will still be behind the Ticats in the standings. And if they lose this game, they're effectively out of it in terms of the playoff race this season. The players that I'm watching in this one, wide receiver Terry Godwin for the Hamilton Tigercats had a very good game the last time they played against Ottawa, so I think he's been probably their best receiver other than Tim White so far this season, and so I'm looking forward to seeing if he has a big game in this one. And then for Ottawa, I'm going with the former Hamilton Tigercat, and that is linebacker Jovan Santos Knox, who has had a pretty good impact on the team since he's been back in the lineup. This is a guy that just brings a presence to your defense as a heavy hitter in the middle of that defense, so I think that he is going to be looking to make a couple of big plays against his former team in this one. And in terms of who is going to win this game, I think this game is going to be very close. A lot of these games between Ottawa and Hamilton the last couple of years have been very close, but Hamilton has actually won all of them. Hamilton has won every game against Ottawa since 2018, that 2018 East Final where Trevor Harris threw all over the Tigercats. I think that, at the end of the day, that's what the history says about this matchup. Hamilton has owned them. I think Ottawa will come out desperate in this one. I think it will be a really close game, but, all the signs are pointing towards Ottawa winning this game, despite that winning streak by Hamilton against the Redblacks, because the Redblacks are coming off a bye week. Hamilton is coming off 3 days rest after playing on Monday. So a lot of these advantages point in favor of the Redblacks, but I just look at that huge winning streak and the history between these two teams and just say, I think Hamilton's probably going to bounce back and win this one. I'm going to go with them 23-21 to win on the road in Ottawa, where they've actually been better on the road this year than at home. So I'm going to take the Ticats to win this one in a close one. Now moving on to Saturday's triple header, and I believe this is the only triple header on the CFL slate this season. So starting Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we have the 6-5 Montreal Alouettes visiting the 9-1 Toronto Argonauts. And the storyline in this one is obviously for the Alouettes. They have yet to beat one of the big three teams in the CFL. It's an ongoing storyline. They're 0-5 against BC, Toronto, and Winnipeg, and they're 6-0 against everybody else. So we'll see if that trend continues. Toronto and Montreal also play next week as well. So Montreal could be looking at a scenario here where they're 6-7 after starting 6-3 on the season. So interested to see how this one plays out. The last time these two teams played, it was a very entertaining game. I think it was 35-27 in favor of the Argos, obviously. But I think at the end of the day, the Alouettes have to just win one of these games against one of these top teams just for their confidence sake and thinking that they can do something in the playoffs this year. So in terms of the players that I'm watching in this one, wide receiver Greg Ellingson for the Montreal Alouettes got back into the lineup last week after missing all of the season to this point. He was really quiet in that game, so I'm thinking he's going to have a bigger game in this one. He was very productive last year with Winnipeg, but maybe the injuries are just catching up to him. We'll have to see. For Toronto, I'm going with Valerian Oromalade, defensive end. Beast once again against Hamilton last week, so expecting him to do the same again this week against an Alouettes offensive line that has played better the last several weeks, but I think against the Toronto defensive line as strong as them with Oromalade leading the way, I think they'll be able to get some pressure in this one. But in terms of who is going to win this game, I think Toronto probably wins this by multiple scores. I'm going to take them to win 31-21. They're just a much more complete team right now, the most complete team in the CFL, in my opinion. They haven't really lost a game legitimately this season because that one loss they had was when Chad Kelly got injured for that second half against Calgary. So until I see that, I'm going to be rolling with the Argos to win, and I'm going to take them to win 31-21. Now moving on to part 2 of the triple header. Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we have the 6-5 Saskatchewan Roughriders visiting the 9-3 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, a rematch from last week's absolute classic in Saskatchewan. And I think this game is going to be really, really interesting. If Saskatchewan wins this game, that is perhaps the strongest 3-game stretch we've seen from a CFL team this season. Probably the most unexpected as well, because they beat BC 3 weeks ago because they had a bye week in between. They beat Winnipeg last week, and if they beat Winnipeg 2 weeks in a row, that would be very impressive, and you'd have to start talking about Saskatchewan as a team that can make some noise in the playoffs. Now, the players that I'm watching in this one, quarterback Jake Dolegala for Saskatchewan has looked very, very good his first couple starts of the CFL season, and I think that, maybe this is kind of the Dustin Crum factor that's kind of creeping into my mind here, where we saw Crum come in and have success immediately, but now he's kind of tailed off. We'll see it the same happens to Dolegala as the weeks go on here, but it has been a really good start for him to his season. And for Winnipeg, I'm going with defensive back Winston Rose, who perhaps could play a big role in shutting down Dolegala in this one. Perhaps he takes a pick 6 back or something like that. He's always been a very opportunistic playmaking defensive back there. So looking forward to seeing how he plays in this one and how that Winnipeg defense responds in general to a pretty poor showing last week in Saskatchewan by their standards. In terms of who is going to win this game, I have a hard time picking against the Bombers in this one. I mean, I took Winnipeg to win last week, but Saskatchewan was at home, and I think that you could argue that Saskatchewan would have won that game going into that one. But I think going back to Winnipeg, they rarely ever lose 2 games in a row. Can't even think of the last time this team lost 2 games in a row. So I'm going to take the Bombers to bounce back here in another close game, but I'm going to take them to win 28-24 at home in the Banjo Bowl. Now wrapping up Week 14 in the CFL, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we have the 4-8 Calgary Stampeders visiting the 2-10 Edmonton Elks, and obviously it was an absolute classic between these two teams last week. Edmonton had the lead for the vast majority of the game, was the better team, I think, overall in that game, but Calgary comes back to steal it with 2 quick touchdowns at the end. Interested to see how Edmonton in particular responds to that adversity that they faced at the end of last week's game. Do they come out hot and win that second game in a row at home? That would be huge for that franchise, but I think that there's still that possibility that they kind of regress here and Calgary kind of capitalizes off that momentum. And this is a huge game for Calgary. If they win this game, they're right back in the thick of the playoff race, but I think if they lose this game, they're pretty far out of it at this point. So in terms of the players I'm watching in this one, for Calgary, running back Kadeem Carey has had a very quiet season to this point. Missed a bunch of games due to injury, but has been back in the lineup the last couple of weeks and hasn't really had a big game yet. So interested to see if he can do that against Edmonton in this one and their poor run defense. And for Edmonton, I'm going with, quite simply, Trey Ford, quarterback who has really been electric since taking hold of this quarterback job, the starting quarterback job in Edmonton. I mean, just the fastest quarterback that we have in the CFL. Really nothing like watching him right now in the CFL, and I'm excited to see what happens with him in this one. Excited to watch him each and every week for this franchise. Gives us a reason to watch Elks games down the stretch, as they're likely going to be eliminated from the playoffs in a couple of weeks here. So at the end of the day, in terms of who's going to win this game, very, very hard game to pick. I am going to go with the Stampeders to win this game, 37-31. I think a very similar scoreline to last week. I think that both teams will be able to move the ball in this one. But I think at the end of the day, Calgary is just more motivated to win this game. And I think that maybe they build some positive momentum after that big comeback last week and play a much more complete game in this one. So I'm going to take Jake Maier and the Stampeders to win this one in 37-31 fashion. So that is just your preview for Week 14 of the 2023 CFL season. Be sure to let me know your picks down below. And with that said, hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.